Well, hello, Convention of State supporters. My name is Andrew Woodruff. I will be your host for this episode of COS Live, and I am joined with my partner in crime, Rita Dunaway. Rita, how are you doing?
I'm great. Good to be on with you again, Andrew.
It's great to be on with you as well. I am so excited for our broadcast today. We have an excellent show lined up. President Biden announced a commission to study how we can reform the Supreme Court, which includes alternatives to court packing. But what kind of alternatives is he talking about? We'll discuss that in just a few moments. Plus, we have an exclusive interview with State Representative Michael Murphy, who used to be a volunteer with the Kansas team and now is a freshman representative. We're going to hear from him and get the scoop on what's going on in Kansas. And before we get to all of that, though, of course, we always have our Article 5 trivia giveaway with COS Vice President Mike Ruthenberg. Mike, take it away.
Hello, Andrew and Rita. Wow, what a great show it's be today. There is so much momentum, so much building when it comes to convention states and people realizing that now is the time to take back our nation from what is a really stinky swamp. And I'm going to talk to you about how that process works because I've got the trivia question of the day. Of course, we're considering a convention of states, and Rita and Andrew will dig right into what's going on, what's on the ground. But it's also important to know the ground rules. And the Constitution is clear about the ground rules of the convention. Last week, if you recall, I had talked about what percent, the number of states that it takes in order to be able to call a convention of states. And my question will carry on to that. But first, on motivation for what you want to know the answer and have fast fingers and be the first one to type it into the comments. And the reason is because I've got some motivation in the form of contraband. These are a pack of 10 pocket guides, COS pocket guides. They're not available in the store right now. I'm sad to say we just got a reprint going, and they are the most popular store item that we've ever had. So I'm going to get those to you. If you're out of them and you need them, better have some fast fingers. And I'm going to also throw in a phone wallet. It goes right on the back of your cell phone. Keep your driver's license or credit card, a little bit of cash there, and you will be sporting convention of states. So now, time to move on to our question of the day. And the question for you is, when it comes to the meeting, also known as convention of states, that happens when we get to our 34 states or 2/3 of states that have passed this application, also known as a resolution. Next question is, how many states or what percentage of states does it take, how many states or what fraction of states does it take in order to actually ratify anything that comes out of the amendment? So let's say we got to 34 states. Let's say we had this meeting we call Convention of States. Let's say that they had some great ideas for some amendments and 26 states or half plus one of our states agreed that this should go out for ratification. Now we're in the ratification process. And how many states does it take? That's the question for the day. I'll be back shortly to answer, and we'll see who our winner is. Back to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Mike. Well, remember back in October when then presidential candidate Joe Biden said he was not in favor of packing the Supreme Court? Well, within 1 week of his administration, he reversed himself. It's almost like he's a politician or something. Politico reported that Biden is creating a bipartisan commission to review the possibility of reforming the Supreme Court and reforming the federal judiciary. While the commission specifically points out that it's nonpartisan or bipartisan, it's important to look at the fact that there are tons of Obama officials in there in this commission, and there's a whole bunch of Ivy League graduates. And they have one hand-picked person in the commission, Caroline Frederickson, who was part of the Bush administration. And I'm guessing that's the person that they are using to call this bipartisan. But even she's hinted that she is intellectually in support of ideas like court expansion, which should make you very concerned. And it kind of peels away this cover that they're using to make this bipartisan. So Biden said in October that he's not a fan of court packing, but he did say that he's in favor of alternatives that go beyond court packing. So Rita, what are some of these alternatives that President Biden is talking about?
Well, Andrew, come on. I'd rather not find out, right?
Right. I don't want to find out.
Let's be honest and let's just be real. The only reason President Biden is interested in reforming the Supreme Court is because he doesn't like the current ideological makeup of the Supreme Court, right? This is politically motivated through and through, and the results of whatever he is looking into are like not going to be in the best interests of the American people. If they follow through with this plan to end the filibuster and pack the Supreme Court, the court is probably going to lose every semblance of integrity. Each party is just going to add or remove justices whenever they cower. And the American trust in the judicial system is going to be eroded even further. That's my big concern here. There's only one way to keep this from happening, and it's an Article 5 convention. A convention of states has the power to propose a constitutional amendment that limits Congress's power to add and remove justices from the Supreme Court. Preserving the independence of the judiciary, so critical, the founders knew it was so critical. And it's critical today to keep proper checks and balances in place at the federal level. And a convention of states, again, can make it happen. Over 5 million people, Andrew, 5 million Americans have voiced their support for the Convention of States movement, and 15 states are already on board. When 34 state legislators call for a convention, then all 50 states meet to propose amendments. And again, the only amendments that can be proposed at this convention are ones that limit federal power and spending and impose term limit on federal officials. We can't trust the president, Congress, or some commission to bring real reform to anything in Washington. If we want true reform, it's up to us working through our state legislators, and we can do it under Article 5 of the Constitution with a convention of states. Right now, Andrew, we're moving ahead in 13 additional states: Iowa, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, Jersey, South Carolina, South Dakota, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, and Wisconsin. Wow, that's a list. And if you didn't hear your state, stay tuned because it's probably come up. So stay tuned for COS news regarding the progress of our legislation in these states and other that weren't named today.
And in those 13 states, like Rita said, we cannot rely on just one single person to get this done. We can't rely on Congress. We can't rely on the president. There's not one single person who can get us to a convention. And we need to learn the lesson that when you go up against the swamp and you're just one person, the swamp is going to beat you back. But the swamp will never be able to beat back we, the people. So if you want to get to a convention, it's going to require your action to get there. Go to www.conventionofstates.com. Sign and share the petition. Share it with your friends, with your family. Let people know about Convention of States and how we are the solution as big as the problem. And then make sure you also get in contact with your local representative and ask them to support the Convention of States resolution. And then if you're not already volunteering, make sure that you volunteer with your local team. Get involved in this amazing organization that is going to restore self-governance for the American man and woman. One of the states that still needs to pass the Article 5 resolution is this. And we're going to have a special report from the heart of America in just a moment, because we have Representative Michael Murphy joining us. And he is a freshman legislator in the Kansas House of Representatives, and he was a former COS volunteer with the Kansas state team. Representative Murphy, how are you doing today, sir? And thank you for joining us.
I'm good. I'm doing well, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. We're so happy to have you here. So first off, congratulations on your recent election. Please tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and what prompted you to run for election in Kansas.
I used to do a lot of writing. I wrote for a couple of online magazines, and I felt like after getting deplatformed by Facebook, like a number of other people have done, I decided that there was going to have to be another way to try to do something to kind of affect some change. My wife had been after me for a while. She says, you're going to have to run for office. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm never going to do that. And in time, it kind of became obvious that somebody had to step up and do it. And I was afraid that if it wasn't me, it would be somebody that, not that I think I'm all that wonderful, but I think I've got a pretty strong personality, and I don't, when you come to core principles, I'm not going to back down.
Was your experience as part of the COS Kansas team part of why you decided to run for office?
I don't know if that's part of it or not. It did make me more comfortable. I had come up here to the Capitol for a number of hearings, and all. I didn't participate in them. I came up to sort of be a moral support, so to speak, and maybe lobby with my representative and my senator. But I did feel comfortable up here. I did come up, and my representative, in fact, the fellow that I replaced, he had decided to retire, and that's why I ran. But I did lobby him and get him to vote in favor of COS when it's come up before, as well as the senator, our senator who got beat this last time. He was a little more, let's say, big government minded, and but I did get him to vote for it, and so we did have some success in that realm. But as I figure you'll probably get to in here a little bit, we have a unique situation here in Kansas because of our history in the state, and how we came in as a slave state and a free state, and we had two constitutions and two capitals, and as a result of that, there was a lot of uncertainty about making changes and stuff like that, and then you add in some stuff that happened in the wake of Roe v. Wade, and we are kind of saddled with a unique thing of having to have a 2/3 vote to get the COS resolution passed, and so we do have a steep hill to climb.
Have your first few weeks been just totally eye-opening now that you're there and actually seeing sausage being made? And maybe tell us the most surprising thing you heard now that you're inside.
Well, I don't know that I've been that surprised. We had, I'd been up here, like I said, for committee hearings, and then last February I spent quite a bit of time up here. We've got a couple of good friends who are representatives, and I shadowed them and followed them around. So I wasn't getting, it wasn't totally like just being thrown in the deep end of the pool, but I am learning a lot, and it is a unique situation to be where you're one of 125, and you've got to try to reach a consensus and change people's minds and ask the right questions. I have learned that over the years that the person, it's a sales thing. But if you're good in sales, the person that asks the questions is the one that is controlling the conversation. And the first one to speak after the final question is asked is the one that loses. So if you ask the right question and then let it get quiet long enough, you stand to do a pretty good chance of getting what you want.
We've had several Convention of States volunteers go on to run for elected office. For the person or the volunteer who maybe wants to follow in your footsteps and run for elected office, whether it be on school board or in council or even a state representative, what advice would you have for that person?
Educate yourself a little bit about what's going on. If you want to run for school or anything, I would certainly go to school board meetings. I would follow what's going on. Go there, learn the best you can about the things that are challenges for the for the area. The thing that we've kind of got here in Kansas, we've got a little bit of a problem this year in the sense that there was a lot of unfinished business last year because when COVID hit, things got shut down early, and there were a lot of bills that were hanging that had passed and never made it. They got out of committee, or maybe they got out of the joint committee and were ready to be on the floor, and they never nothing ever happened because we got sent home, or not we, but the House and Senate got sent home, and so nothing was finished, and so all that had to start over. So there's a lot of legislation out there that had broad acceptance and had been run through and had been through committees, and so we're having to hear a lot of that again and to get it on through. So it's kind of a fast pace, from that standpoint, because a lot of it is it's the same bill that passed before. It's got a new number, maybe a few tweaks in it, and they're bringing it out. So there's I'd say the main thing is, if somebody's interested in doing something like this, just get your eyes open and get involved in some sort of a level locally, and kind of work yourself into it.
Mm-hmm.
In most states, the Convention of States resolution just requires a simple majority vote in both chambers, the House and the Senate, in order to be passed. The governor's signature, we know, is not required. That's not part of it. So far, we have passed through state legislature in 15 states. And I think it's safe to say we would have done that already in Kansas as well. But Kansas has this little wrinkle that you alluded to a little bit earlier. So I wonder if you could tell us about that, and also tell us what kind of support Convention of States does enjoy currently in the Kansas legislature.
Well, the way I understand it, a lot of the 2/3 deal, we ended up with a 2/3 deal, part because after Roe v. Wade, there was a move afoot early on to try to stop the abortion issue through a Convention of States, not the Convention of States project we're familiar with, but through the Article 5 process. There was a lot of fear put in the hearts of people. They were told they could lose their Constitution. We could lose the Second Amendment. We could lose everything if we tried that. So the same arguments we hear today, and so that was put in there to kind of stop it. We had kind of a liberal legislature at the time, and so they put in that 2/3 requirement to put a stop to it, and it has put a stop to it. We've run this through, I think what's for the last 5 or 6 years, and every time we know we've got a majority. Like you said, it would pass easily with a majority, but we've got to hit that magical number. Well, this year we've actually done really well in the primary and in the general election, and we have probably one of the strongest majorities we've ever had. Although I do understand that in talking to some people, I think we've got to have 84 on the House side to get our 2/3, and we have 86 in the House. The problem is we have about 6 people who are not on board yet. So we've got to convince at least 4 of those to come over to our side, or we're not going to get it this year either. So we've got our work cut out for us, even though we've got a good majority.
So for the viewers who are just tuning in right now, we are speaking to Representative Michael Murphy, who is part of the Kansas State House Representatives. And earlier we mentioned that you were a Convention of States volunteer with the Kansas team before you ran for office. So how did you get involved with Convention of States? How did you hear about Article 5? And why do you think it is so important?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I know I'm assuming David Snyder real well. I'm not sure how I got in touch with David, but what I did is like I said, I used to do a lot of writing, and with writing comes research. And when I first heard about Convention of States, I thought, oh no, that's not a good idea. And so I set out. I'd been in contact with David, and I was going to meet with him, and so I set out to do a lot of research, and so I could meet with him and explain the error of his ways. And my research, and I'd like to think that most people research the way I do, but a lot of people don't, because we get confirmation bias, and you have a tendency to take your preconceived notions and go about, looking for things that back up the way you feel. But I looked at it as if I was trying to prove him wrong, and so by the time I met with him, I had proven him wrong. So So I converted myself, in that aspect, and I would like to think that other people are open-minded enough to do that, because all the arguments that are against convention of states, I held those beliefs at one time, and I understand. Like I said, in doing the research, I learned that they were not right and not valid, and so that's my wit testimony for convention of states.
It's a great story. And I found that people who do put the time and effort into reading the documents and doing the research come to the same conclusion that you came to, with that a convention of states is safe, it is limited, and it is really the only way to restore meaningful limits on federal power. Representative, our resolution would allow for constitutional amendment of proposals on 3 topics: fiscal restraints, term limits for federal officials, and limiting federal overreach. Of those topics, under those topics, is there a particular amendment idea that is a favorite of yours or that you think is most important?
I'd really love to see the 17th Amendment repealed and the 16th for that matter, and turn things back to the states the way they belong. But whether those would happen or not, that's up to the convention. But those are a couple areas I'd love to see, because I think that would really put things in perspective the way they're supposed to be.
So that's just for our viewers who are listening. 16th Amendment, of course, is income tax, personal income tax, and 17th Amendment is direct election of senators, which really took the power away from the state legislatures to choose the senators to represent states in Washington, D.C.
That's exactly right. And I think those 2 things, our 10th Amendment was really hamstrung when the 17th Amendment was passed. And so we end up with some situations like that make it very difficult.
And as you probably know, Convention of States is a nonpartisan organization, but right now there is a lot of urgency that is being felt within the grassroots and just around the country, because people fear that the Biden administration is on a path to grow the government exponentially, far more so than where the government is right now. And also there's, the fears of judicial reform, and, this goes on, of all the fears and reasons why people feel like there's a sense of urgency. Do you share in that feeling of urgency? And do you think that the United States is on the right trajectory right now?
Yes and yes and no. How's that? I'm quite concerned about things that have been done. I've had a number of people contact me about what South Dakota has done, and I think North Dakota has done something similar as well, about telling the federal government that these executive orders are not the appropriate way to go. We're sort of in Kansas. We've kind of we hit a point to where it's too late to start something like that, because the way our calendar is, we have to have bills in place and written and approved to go forward from this point. And we're already kind of past that date, so we can't do that here necessarily. But I'm certainly concerned about the fact that we've got just one person in an Oval Office that does edicts and everything that affects every one of us. It's not any different than an out of control Supreme Court or anything else, So we, the people, have really got to wake up and pay attention to what's going on, because we're losing our power and having more taxes and regulations put on us than ever before. So it's just something we're going to have to really motivate the grassroots probably more than ever.
Well, before we let you go, can you tell our viewers what's going to happen next, or what you expect to happen with Convention of States in Kansas, and maybe how they can help?
Well, the best thing to do is to write your legislature and tell them what's going on in your heart. I get more emails from Convention of States folks than I do anything else. We passed a resolution for a constitutional amendment called Value of them Both earlier in the process, and that had to go by 2/3, and we pushed that through the House and the Senate. And so that's going to go to the voters, and it's going to be to help, preserve, the health safety of mothers and babies in relation to abortion. And so I'm hoping that we can get this through. I do know the leadership is in favor of it, and we do want to get it done this year. The majority leader told me, he says, we're going to do it this year. Well, I hope so. But I don't know the timeline on it, and I know they're going to want to make sure they've got votes so that when it comes forward, it's not a problem or it all of a sudden go, one short, something like that. So we've got to work it out for us, but I feel somewhat hopeful that we can push it through this year. I certainly hope so.
Well, Representative Murphy, we are all praying that we'll be able to pass it through this year in Kansas, and we're praying for the team and for you. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate hearing your insight, and we look forward to having you on the program again when Kansas does pass the COS resolution in Kansas.
I would love to do that. I appreciate it so much.
Okay, well, it is time to go to our Article 5 answer with Mike Ruthenberg. Mike, back to you.
All right, I'm back. Thanks so much. Great show it has been. And I hope you are not wondering what the answer is to this question, but you're just looking to see maybe you were the first one to answer, or how many people actually answered the question, the trivia question for the day. Again, we talked a little bit about what it takes in order to call a convention. It takes 34 states, or 2/3 of the states, pass a resolution, also known as an app for the Convention of States. And we've done 15 states so far, passed that hurdle so far, on our way to 34, because it takes that 34 states to make that happen. Then have a convention. It takes 26 of those, or half plus one, 50 states, 25 plus one, in order to move from just being an idea that was created a convention. They have to like it as a majority and send it on to the states for ratification. The answer to our trivia question is that it's 3/4 of the states, or 38 states, in order to ratify. The minute ratification happens, the minute a 38th state should ratify, and there's two ways to ratify, either by state convention or by the legislatures. They have an opportunity to vote as well. Either once we get to 38 states, then boom, we have a new amendment constitution, bright and shiny. Last done, in case you were wondering, was the 27th Amendment, 1992. That was an amendment that was ratified, and that actually came as part of the rights. That gives you an idea of how long they can stick around until the will is there. It also gives you that it's not easy for us to do this, which is what makes it completely safe. It takes the will of the people in order to make a constitutional amendment. It's the only way for us to take back the amendment. It's the only way for us to come back in the box our original Constitution had intended for them. So that's it for today. I hope you are the winner. And now back to you, Andrew.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. Now, for our viewers, if you are frustrated with corrupt politics, if you're sick and tired of having your rights steamrolled, know this: there is a plan. The American founders were brilliant. They knew this might happen, and so they gave us a solution for such a time as this. That's why Convention of States is working to use Article 5 of the Constitution, the founders' plan, to put the people back in charge. CS equips American patriots to reclaim their self-governance. The movement is well underway, with 15 states already on board. 34 is that magic number. When we get to convention, we're going to send the career politicians packing, force DC to use our money wisely, and place meaningful limits on federal power. So go to conventionofstates.com, share the petition, join local Convention of States team. You will not be sorry. Help us make history and change DC forever.
And don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Rumble, MeWe, Gab, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Parler, Instagram. Wherever you are getting your social media updates, make sure that you are following or subscribing Convention of States as well. And then spread our content out there. Share it with your friends on Facebook and your friends on Instagram. Make sure that you're giving us some likes. Also, do not forget to tune in to Mark Meckler's Battle Cry, the COS co-founder and president. It's on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's excellent. You get your dose, your weekly dose of Mark Meckler You get to hear his amazing perspective. And of course, he always ties it back to Convention of States. So make sure you check that out. We will see you next Tuesday, same time, same place, 6 p.m. Eastern time, right here on Facebook. And remember, if you're looking for someone who is going to restore the republic, look in the mirror, because it's going to be you. Well, that's all the time that we have today. We'll see you next week.